with you. I'm convinced that God wanted me to come here today. We had been scheduled to attend a Baptist Missions event in Cleveland earlier in the week, and then things had developed in certain ways in the last several weeks. I have a sister who had a nearly fatal heart attack, so kind of in crisis mode with that, getting back here. She lives near Williamson, just up Route 21 there. And then my brother-in-law on the other side of the family, within the last 2 weeks, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so we're trying to be in a ministry of comfort to family people. But I got this email saying, is there any possibility you're going to be in the area in July? And I said, well, yes. And so the rest of my family, though I have a family with me on this trip, understood that I need to peel off and come down here. They're continuing the mission of mercy a few miles north of here. So thank you for understanding that. But I am just delighted to be with you here today. What I want to do is bring you up to date on the past, present, and some future things, to the extent we can look at the future. We do have our plans, but the Lord's will is what always prevails, doesn't it? And amen for that. I mean, because the Lord knows what's best for us, even though it's kind of like when we were kids and the parents knew what was best for us. We didn't think they did, but as it turns out, they probably did, and the Lord always does. So what I'm going to talk to you about is kind of living the principles of Acts chapter 18. We've had the opportunity to live out some of these things over the years. If you're sticking around for the preaching service, I will actually be preaching from Acts chapter 18, in about 3 hours after we finish this. I just want you to know, I never speak real long. It just seems that way. I don't have a sense of humor. What it says, actually, in Acts chapter 18, among other things, is this. And Paul carried or continued, I did not grow up in 1611, but this is from the old translation. Paul tarried or continued there, and there happened to be Corinth in this context. Continued there, yet a good while. You might say that we have kind of continued there in Utah for a good while. Pastor said several years. It's several decades. I'm at the age now where I try to remember things that happened. I'm missing it by 20 or 30 years, and I'm trying to pick out what year that was that happened. Oh, yeah, I have become my grandfather with a vengeance. I'm taking pills that he couldn't even dreamed of. Although he had a really nice rainbow selection of them. So, the continuation of the ministry. If the Lord gives you an extended period of time, all kinds of things happen. And some of them are tough. There are some bumps in the road. There are challenges. There are victories. There are exciting things that happen. And I love Pastor Bill's call to attention here about, hey, maybe God would be leading you in your life to do something like this somewhere. And as long as you have not assumed room temperature, there are things that we can do for the Lord. And it might be here indeed, or it could be other places. By the way, don't disparage being here. This is what Jesus was referring to in Acts chapter 1 and verse 8, when he said, you shall be witnesses, among other places, unto the ends of the earth. This is the end of the earth, from where Jesus spoke those words. This is foreign missions. This is not home missions. This is foreign missions in the context of New Testament times. So look at this as a strategic place, a strategic time, because God in His sovereignty caused us to be born now and here. And so we need to continue to do the work that God would have us do, wherever that happens to be. So for us, it has been Utah, the place that God's choosing for us. Our mission field could be described in a lot of ways, but doctrinal, I suppose Utah has been known for you know, the place where the Mormons are. Well, they are. There are other people there too. But statewide now it's about 60%. That's dropping the Mormon percentage from what it used to be. But about 60% of the people believe in false scriptures, false gods, a false Christ, a false plan of salvation. When it comes to the scriptures, they believe that their scriptures, Book of Mormon and other volumes as well, are actually superior to the Bible. As far as the nature of God, their God is seen as a physical, exalted man. Used to be a man on another planet somewhere. But now he has become a God. And as far as Jesus is concerned, among other things that they believe about it, they believe that he is a spirit brother of Lucifer. How could they? I don't know. But obviously, these people, even though they profess to be the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it's the Christ of Latter-day Saints and not the Christ of the Bible that we're dealing with. Hey, listen, these people are not stupid, so we don't make fun of them. We don't look at them as somehow inferior. We are no better. Only God could open our eyes to the truth. God can open their eyes to the truth as well. The good people will live around. I enjoy living in Utah. Plan of salvation, like so many, they believe that people must earn their own salvation. But they've taken a step further, I should say probably several steps further, in thinking that people cannot only earn their salvation, and it can, even like the God that we worship, who became a God, that we also can become gods, have our own planets over which to rule and to populate with our offspring. And then they look back to, well, if Lloyd became a God, yeah, right. If Lloyd became a God, then my spirit offspring would then worship me as their heavenly Father. That's Mormon theology. And so when I drove by Hill Cumorah today, driving down Route 21 from Williamson through Palmyra and southward, great guy. Did I see that on the way down here?
Yeah.
Man, it sounds kind of actually good. But as I was driving past Hill Cumorah today, this is the pageant. You know, this is the last year they're going to have that thing. They've canceled their pageants. Yeah, you're going to ask me why later on in the question time. But that's what these dear people believe. These kinds of things. So they need the Lord. A lot of people need the Lord. A lot of people may not believe this, but they're just as lost. They're not more lost, just as lost as these people. Little review. Some of you are new to me. Some of you were not born when we started this. You weren't even a twinkle in your daddy's eye when we started our missionary work years ago. 1971, 1972, we moved from New York, Pennsylvania area where we've been living to Sandy, Utah, suburban Salt Lake City. And there we were involved in helping another missionary in the establishment of this work. There were children's ministries that we were involved in. The Lord really blessed those children's ministry. Salvation. Some of those kids went into ministry, as a matter of fact, from Mormon church backgrounds. God is able to save people and use them. This fella was my first baptism. He was fortunate I did not drown him. My first baptism ever. And Mike is now retiring from 40 years of missionary service with Baptist missions in France. He turned down a full-ride scholarship to the University of Utah in order to go to Bible college, train for the ministry. So, I mean, that was a good start. I claim no credit for any of the good stuff. I'll take all the credit for the bad stuff that I've done. So God did a great work in Mike's heart. We had a change of ministry, though, after we worked about 18 months getting our feet wet. As new missionaries came back in those days, I had hair. It was red, it was curly, it was thick. How many of you remember my red curly hair? A few of you do. You do take notice of hair, don't you? That's right, I love your haircut. You don't need all that hair.
Well, here's my barber right here.
There you go. Good job. Doesn't take as long as it used to. The change of ministry took us to the next valley to the west, the Tooele Valley. That's how you say it, Tooele. And there we dug in our heels for about 13 years. The Lord did some good things there as well. Saved people, the Lord saved these folks. We were able to baptize. These are representative of many others as well. I wish I had time to give you all their stories, but God did that. Building program, I'll tell you what, if you can survive a building program, you're doing well. But to survive and to thrive, that takes God's doing. So it was a modest building. We didn't have hardly any men, so if you don't have enough men, guess what? The ladies pitch in too. There's some ladies putting up some insulation, among other things. Thank God. Thank God for these people and the way God used them. The dedication in the building. And that ministry is still underway. Take note of that picture. I think it might show up a little later in the presentation. Unless the speaker here gets long-winded and we don't make it that far. Change of ministry after 13 years. Yeah, I'm just reason. 13 years. That was 13 years right there. 13 years later, change of ministry. We sensed that God was calling us to the community of Richfield in the state of Utah. This is south central Utah. As you can see, a smaller number of years. And as we went to Richfield, we went there with high hopes. God had done some pretty wonderful things in Tooele, so we were looking forward to duplicating those kinds of things. We had youth groups come and help us. We always have. Hint, hint, hint. We can still use short-term ministry people coming to help us in the summers usually, but we can tailor that to other times of the year as well. So they came to help us in this community of about 6,000 people with 12 Mormon churches. Each of those churches, by the way, had a membership of almost 400 or 500, so do the math. That was Richfield. And so going door to door, going to the highways and the byways, attempting to compel them to come in, but almost nobody came in. It was discouraging, challenging, confusing. Why would God lead us there and not raise up a core group to establish a church? The pastor said, yeah, church planting is just something we've been passionate about. Although when we went to Utah, it wasn't so much the church planting concept as well, just ministering to Mormon people in any way, any format that the Lord would open for us to do that. So happens that it was primarily through church planting. But now it wasn't happening. We were trying, but it wasn't happening. So we learned this verse. It's a painful lesson to learn. Whoever shall not receive you nor hear the words when you depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. Well, that's hard. Now, we did not literally drive out of town, pull over to the side, get out, and shake the dust off our feet. But in reality, that's what we were doing. After a couple of years of really sowing, watering, not a single reaping experience that we have there. So we moved. We began this change of ministry, this time back up north into the Salt Lake Valley again, into an area known as Riverton. At that time, Riverton was a community, a suburban community, maybe of a couple of thousand people. Today, it's closer to 40,000. And that's just one of the communities in the southwest quadrant of the valley. It's just growing like crazy. I mean, there are just so many people that God put us there. Different type of context. Instead of kind of a stagnant or even shrinking number of people, it was a burgeoning exciting, vibrant growth area. So in this case, yes, the Lord did enable us to see a nucleus of people come together so that the birthday of Trinity Baptist Church actually occurred on January the 15th, 1989. Still had hair in 1989. This would be our charter members signing the charter membership. And that's an exciting day to see that happen. Around here you have to read history to know what happened at First Baptist Church of Avoca. But I'll tell you what, churches don't just automatically appear. There were pioneers. There were people who made it happen. God used those people. Leadership and rank and file folks. Thank God for people like that. Not everybody's cut out to be the first generation in church planting, but God does give some people that privilege. It is a privilege to do that, but you have to have the spiritual gift of folding chairs and all kinds of things like that. You just have to have those kind of gifts. And the fruit from those days. English, a couple from the UK. Most English people are from the UK when you think about it. So Brian and Eileen invited me into their house. We made contact with them. They invited me in. They had been converts to the Mormon church from an Anglican background. And so they had a wonderful English accent, and I talked to them, visited almost every week after week, month after month. Went on for a year or more. And I couldn't see anything really happening other than they were pleasant and nice and polite, but not anything like a decision taking place. But then God did eventually open their hearts, and they received the Lord. Then they told me why they invited me to their house in the first place. They were preparing themselves to serve what was called a senior mission for the LDS Church. They wanted to know how to be Mormon to Baptist people. And I was their test case. You know, a funny thing also happened on the road to Damascus, didn't it? Yeah, that's right. Paul saw the light, and these people saw the light too. Thank God. Thank God. God saved them both. They're still thriving and growing in the Lord. Kind of getting up there in years these days, but God is still using them. Project Utah happened in 1990, which brought to the state over 200 volunteers for a period of 2 weeks. We were able to visit 11,000 homes. And out of the 11,000 homes visited, about 10% of them invited us to come back. Oh, that was great. We had 1,100 contacts, and all of our volunteers went back home. So now we had about 12 to 15 people in that new church plant, and trying to prioritize the follow-up visits. It was a nice problem to have. But you can see God was at work. God has been so at work in Utah over these many, many decades. By the way, one of the reasons that we came to Cleveland on this trip was to be awarded a service pin for 50 years of missionary service. We have seen God at work for 50 years. I'll tell you what, to have a front row seat to see what God can do. It doesn't get any better than that. We are nothing. I'm a 3-cylinder guy in an 8-cylinder world. But God has been at work. And you folks have been part of this from almost the very beginning of our missionary service. Thank you. Thank you so much for being part of the enabling process through your gifts and your prayers, your friendship, your loyalty over the years. You're not alone. God has raised up a wonderful supporting foundational staff of people out there to help us over the years. So it is something that we truly are grateful for. From Project Utah, one of the volunteers who came to help us was gifted financially. And he said, well, you know, you're a small group, you're just getting underway, but someday you're going to need to build a building. I want to help. So he left us some money. When he went back to to California with his family. He left us some money. It was enough to create kind of a matching fund project, so that with the funds that he provided, with the matching funds that God raised up from other sources, within 13 months we had a complete payoff on a little over 2 acres of ground. And wow, that was nice. That was a really nice situation. In the process, we were also continuing to reach out to folks. A Catholic couple at the top, Mormon couple at the bottom. Baptisms, including this guy who came to the Lord. I baptized him. He ended up marrying my daughter, and he's going to church in Williamson this morning with my daughter, and that was his, still is his daughter. So it turned out to be a yours, mine, and ours family. You know how that goes. And so the Lord has blessed them beautifully. I told Danny when he got interested in my daughter, and he said that he had received the Lord, and he wanted to be baptized. I said, Danny, if this is a hormonal conversion, I'll never forgive you. It wasn't. And he is genuine through and through. His name is Danny Salazar. So we not only inherited a great son-in-law, we got a great enchilada recipe. In the course of time, as we continued to develop the ministry there, we thought, well, we got the property. Is it time to think about building on that property? Well, how do you find out if it's time to build? This was the whole group at that point, not a big group. But so I started to preach a little series on counting the cost. Expository messages is what I like to do most. So expositions on that portion of Scripture. And then the practical application turned out handing out little anonymous pieces of paper, little forms that you could fill out. How much would you believe that God could provide through you to help us with this building program? Kind of like Faith Promise, except building fund stuff. Well, when we totaled it all up, yeah, it looked like we were ready. So we scheduled what you have to do in terms of getting ready for a building program. Hey, here we go again, another building program. And so before many more months passed, we were at it. And it was kind of a building by binge. We had groups of supporting churches and other places come and help us at various stages: framing, concrete work, electrical, heating, air conditioning. It seemed like God was just raising up people to do things. We had people come out who were carpet layers. We had people who were specialists in windows. God just raised up people from all over to help us with this building program. Saved a lot of money, although of course you have to use licensed contractors for certain strategic places along the way. Can't avoid that, but God did that. In the middle of the building program, the whole world came to town for the Salt Lake City Winter Olympics in 2002. So we were able, by the grace of God, to put together a ministry that brought about 260 folks to town this time from various places, not only around the country, but we also had some international help coming from mission fields. From other places to help us evangelize on the streets of Salt Lake City and other venues for the Winter Games. We saw scores of people profess to receive Christ on the streets of Salt Lake City during the Winter Games. And these new believers will go back to their countries, whether it be Finland or wherever, with now born-again people to carry the gospel back to their own. Is God good or what?
Amen.
I mean, we went to Utah, and then God blessed us by bringing the whole world to Utah. So that we could become ministers not only to the Mormons of Utah, but bobsledders from wherever. Thank God. Thank God. And you've been part of that. You've been part of that. We called our ministry during the Winter Olympics Medals for More. During Olympic events, I don't know if you realize this or not, but you see all of the events on TV, but there's another event going on too. It's called pins. Trading of pins. People just go nuts about pins at big sporting events. And so you notice the colors of the Wordless book on our pin. We could give them a really pretty nice looking pin. The pin's after the picture. But the pin was something that people wanted. He said, we'd be glad to give you one of these. You don't need to buy it. But we need about 5 minutes to explain what this pin stands for. And that's how we would initiate conversations about the gospel. And yeah, praise the Lord for what happened there. And I'm praising the Lord a lot today because God is being good. After the Winter Olympics, we got back down to finishing the building program, and it was done. And this is the way it looked the afternoon of the evening of the dedication service. Trinity Baptist Church dedication. We didn't even have all the grass in, you see. But we did have dirt, praise the Lord. We had dirt. There's not a whole lot of Baptist dirt in Utah, but we had some of it. So. And that building has been such a blessing over the years. A place where I could do some preaching. I love to preach. And the Lord just brought people in and saw the work develop there. My wife does great work in the kitchen, as you can see. She does just great work. Not only in the church kitchen, but in the home kitchen. She has entertained hundreds of people over the years. The short-term ministry people and others. Leading the ladies' Bible study there in our living room. Thank God for this lady. If I had it to do again, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I'd go to the same woman, ask her the same question, and hope for the same answer. Fruit for God's kingdom there. And men's ministries, which is also called a ministry of eating. That's how you build men's ministries. I think probably when I was here the last time, I was asking you to pray for the possibility of traveling to complete some research for a book. I did a partial seminar with you the last time I was here, and part of that had to do with God's work anciently in Ephesus, to see how the Lord would raise up a church in a cultic center like Ephesus, and to see that as a template for ministry in highly religious cultures, even in our own day. And the Lord gave me that opportunity 3 years ago to finally get to Turkey, to visit Ephesus and other places. Since I was that close to Israel, I wasn't going to not go that close and not get there. It was a good experience. Visiting the biblical sites in Israel, what a moving experience. If you haven't done it, try to do it. You've got to give you that opportunity. And here we are in Ephesus with my son and I and our Islamic guide. I'm not going to get political on you here today. I could, because I have my opinions. I have an opinion about everything, just ask my wife. But one of the real takeaways from that trip, there were several, but one of the takeaways was, it's no longer them to me when I'm thinking of Muslim people. It's no longer them. It's her. I mean, she was showing us pictures of her kids. She's got beautiful kids. She's very friendly. And by the way, she hates the terrorism. She just hates it. She hates it as much as you do. We were at the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul. And my son was looking at some shop down the way there at the bazaar. And I found myself talking with another shopkeeper, a Syrian fellow. Hey, listen, he was dressed better than I'm dressed. Nice looking guy, probably about 35 years old, I would say. Impeccably dressed, in perfect English. And that was at the time, if you recall, when ISIS was at their worst and people were fleeing Syria, just crashing down through fences and climbing over walls to try to get out. He was part of those people, crashing through fences and climbing over fences, trying to get out. With his family, young wife, 3 young children. And he said, yeah, we made it. And I said, how about your extended family? How about grandpa, grandma? And others, he said, I have no idea. And he wept. He just broke down and cried. He said, I have no idea. It's no longer them to me. It's her, and it's him, and the other people I talk to. Folks, they're just like us. They really are. They're no more lost than we were before God saved us. And they're no less savable than we have been. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. There's none who doeth good. No, not one. We are not the exception. So that was a takeaway for me. To think now I know about over 1 billion other people in the world that I understand as individual people who have hearts and souls and dreams and catastrophes, and they need the Lord. Yeah, they do. Islam's a terrible religion. But then again, so is any false religion. Terrible. It kills people. And it causes death. Yeah. Wages of sin is death. She's no terrorist. She's a lost person. We've stayed in touch with her. Pray for it each day. Pray for it each day. More fruit in Utah. More fruit in Utah. Keep back from the trip. The guy in the lower right-hand corner is now at Annapolis. Equal time. The guy next to him, the older guy in the blue shirt, he's an old-time West Point guy. So God has given us some very interesting people to work with there in Utah, some fruit for the labor. We've done outreaches and parades and fair booths. We've married off people. That's always fun to do that, right? Marry people. This was an interesting situation. Married this young couple. She grew up in Utah. Well, actually, her mom grew up in Utah. Her mom was in one of those kids in that picture of all the little children, I said, where we were in Sandy, and the Lord had saved a number of people, some of them in the ministry. Well, her mom received the Lord through those children's ministries and married a guy, and together they went to Israel as missionaries. And this is their daughter. And here we are, part of that wedding. I was asked to be part of the officiating crew for that one. It was streamed live to Israel. And so about 60 unsaved Israelis were watching that ceremony being streamed live from Salt Lake City as we did that ceremony. Marrying people, just love to marry people. And then the Lord gave us the payoff on the property in Salt Lake City. And so we had property, building paid for, continued to have other ministries. This is what we were calling at that point First Look Ministries, short-term folks coming to help us in the ways that you see us today. Hint, hint, hint. We can still use people to come to help. VBS, police appreciation events. And the Lord is giving us good growth. Good growth. Oh, there's an arrow. And there's a polygamist under the arrow visiting church that day. You can't see her specifically, but she's there. She's there. More polygamists in the state of Utah today than during the days of Brigham Young. Yeah, still illegal. One Sunday we had Moroccans visiting us in Utah on an exchange program. The first and maybe the only Christian service that these girls would ever attend. Islamic girls. We were reaching out in a program called Searching for Nicodemus, using the website for people to learn about the gospel. The Lord has given us new missionary candidates and volunteers in Utah. Some going to the Mormon, some in campus ministry, as this young couple is also. But then again, change of ministry. There's about 10 minutes left here. So now we get to the point where the most recent change of ministry is taking place. You wondered, what are you now doing and what will you be doing? Listen up. That's what we're about to talk about now. So I got a telephone call from Will. Will called and said, you know me, and I said, I know you. Yeah, Will was a member of one of our supporting churches in Idaho. Went into itinerant evangelism, and in traveling around the country, talked all about the great need in the Intermountain West, and Mormon country in particular, and raised up a volunteer group of people to come to Salt Lake City and start a church about 7 or 8 years ago, called Gospel Grace Church, Baptist Church. They called Gospel Grace Church. And I thought, I wonder what's going to happen. Well, they came to town. He had actually recruited about 50 or 60 people to come, including a good leadership team. They grew from about 50 or 60 people to about 250 in 6 years. I'd never heard about it. Yeah, that is a wow. That's a big wow. I'd never seen that happen before. But they came to town not only to start a church, but churchettes. They thought in 250 it's time to start another church. Will said, we believe God is leading us to start a church down in that southwest part of the valley where you've been working faithfully for so many years. I said, well, great. Well, after that, we started to talk more together about them coming to that area. And instead of starting a brand new church, how the Lord began to lead us was to lead us together in a partnership situation. They would raise up more people to come and minister in our part of the valley and actually come alongside us at Trinity Baptist Church to help us develop towards self-support, and they could minister in the area where the Lord was leading them to minister. Now, who are these guys? This would be the field administrator of Baptist Missions for North America and the president of Baptist Missions. If you're going to enter into a partnership like that, you better be sure that you have good compatibility. And I needed wisdom. I needed counsel. So these guys came to Salt Lake City, counseled with us, talked to these new guys as well, and they were saying, you know, this sounds good. This sounds like a really good situation. So we continued to work toward it. Now, the church that went from 50 to 250, that's the picture of that church in Salt Lake City. And this was the leadership team that they assembled for what they thought was going to be a new church plant, but now became the new leadership team to be the first non-missionary leadership team to come to Trinity Baptist Church. You know, that's what missionaries do. You develop a work so you can turn it over, so it can be released from missionary status. Well, we saw that happening right before our very eyes. So it was an exciting new partnership that God worked. Coming together and moving forward. The graduation day of Trinity Baptist from missionary status was about a year ago now. Thank God. Thank God for that. It was a day of celebration, a day of great celebration, when we could finally hand that ministry off. And a parting gift for us, also in commemoration of our 50th wedding anniversary, they gave us a cruise. The good news is it was a round-trip cruise. So, you really hate to have a going-away party at the wrong time. Here was the new ministry plan at that point. What do you do after you've spent that number of years working in a certain way and doing certain things? Well, wanted to go and update supporters. Hello, updating supporters. Continue to do evangelism in Utah, among Mormons primarily. And discipling people as they are saved, to help people come out of darkness into light is a process of people who've been Mormonized their whole life. You have to de-Mormonize them with years and years of instruction, and also to be involved in any way I possibly can in future church planting. At this age, starting a new church, am I going to get one done at this age? Maybe if I can look to be 120. But I can still be part of church planting and do what I can along the way to do that. To conduct seminars, as the Lord will give me opportunity in and out of state. To be part of revitalization ministries. There are a lot of discouraged people in ministry that need to be helped. mentoring maybe younger people in ministry. I'm doing some of that. Also, to be consultancy. When you get old, lose all of your hair, get a lot of wrinkles, you know, have half your teeth, they think you know something. So people will look to you as a consultant. And recruiting for future ministry. And doing some right, getting that book done, for instance. 10 days after the handoff of this ministry, I was diagnosed with stage 4 aggressive prostate cancer. Wonderful. God's timing was perfect. When I started the aggressive treatment, it just knocked me out of the saddle. I could not have ministered full-time last year if I'd had to. The Lord timed that perfectly so that these new people were there and in place to continue that ministry. And so the handoff took place. I went into treatment, and I learned to add to my new ministry plan, James 4:15, you ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that. Well, it took me several months after the treatments, which have been successful by the way. I feel fine. And they tell me I'm doing well. To feel well enough to do this. I'm back at it. Which makes my friends happy, my opponents, they're not so happy anymore. We tried to honor this New Testament plan, where Paul said, let us go again to visit our brethren in every city, where we have preached the word of the Lord. They want church planting to do that. And he went through Syria and Cilicia, confirming or strengthening the churches, going back to churches that have been established, to help them as well. So church planting and then helping establish churches, or churches in the process of trying to get established. That's what we now can do and what we need to do. Ministry, so this is a seminar I'm now doing. Changing isn't just for babies. I've learned about some changing over the years. Changing is not, by the way, just for young people either. Old people can change. Amen. You don't believe it, look in the mirror. We do change. We have to learn to manage change. You have to do that. You have to do that. Another seminar I do is called Prevailing in Impossible Places, the Ephesus thing. What do I have, about 3 minutes? About 3? 5. Thank you. I like you.
There's a 5-minute warning.
Another seminar I do is Mormonism or the Bible, looking at the choices. I like to do seminars. Ministering to Mormons, just how to minister to people like this. You have endured some of my seminars in the past. So I've been going around, I've been preaching and doing evangelism training. I've done that in churches. I've been mentoring this young man, who's now the associate pastor of that particular church. Preaching and revitalization. This is a church meeting in an old remodeled garage. This dear man, he's not the pastor, but here's a ministry. That's about the whole congregation, but this guy's been there in Utah longer than I have. And he's tired. He's tired. I try to go and encourage him and help him. Preaching, evangelism, training, revitalization in that church as well. Preaching and encouragement, small church, way out in the desert. Way out in the desert. Other ministries of that type. I've been busy. I preach almost every Sunday in one church or another, sometimes a few minutes away, sometimes a few hours away from where I live, sometimes a flight or two away, where I can minister and be of help to people. Stories and stories. That's the church that we were at in Tooele. It now is on tough times again. They need help, and they're inviting me to be of help. Glad to help in any way I can. Networking with another mission agency. This guy's the president of Northwest Baptist Missions. Perhaps being involved in a chaplain's assistance position. Not sure about that. I went back to Missouri to comfort a family who lost their daughter. This was the daughter of one of my co-workers in the past. And so I went back there. She died very suddenly. Very suddenly. There's an organization called Barnabas Enrichment Ministries to do some adjunct work with them. I've been invited to do that. Probably 2 or 3 times a year. I can accept invitations from them to assist. home-based ministries out of the church where we were. They still want us to maintain an association there, and so we have. That would be mainly Mormon-focused evangelism and discipleship, and helping them with additional church plants, strategizing, assisting in other ways. Plant camps, short-term ministries is what we call it now. Currently discipling people like this, from Mormon backgrounds, and your prayers are essential. I'll just leave it at this. I only got like 2 more slides anyway, but keep praying for us. Now you know where we've been, what we're doing, and what we look forward to doing in the future. Listen, I'm going to hang around informally, talk to me. I'll be here after this session. I'll be here for a time after the next preaching session. And I do want to talk to you and answer questions, if I can. I did all the talking in this session. So,
You still got to be there.
I got a couple of minutes. Okay, questions until the ground opens up and I disappear. Questions? Yes?
I have my sister and her family are Mormons. They live in, they're sealed in the church and all that crazy stuff. So I tried to talk to them. I think I talked to you last time you were here. What's the best thing you could tell Mormons that are very deeply involved?
You know, if you're going to have your situation, it's continuing, it's ongoing. I would give them the best possible, most compassionate book that I could find that presents biblical Christianity, that does not mention Mormonism anywhere. And ask him to read it. Say, would you? And ask him, you know, I would like your evaluation of this. And after he's read it, this good Christian presentation of truth, you're going to have discussions then on the basis of what you know you've given him. And just keep it going. Love them, be a good example, eat a lot of food together.
Yeah, they live in Washington State, so.
Nice trip, it's beautiful up there, take a trip. Somebody else? Yeah.
Why aren't they doing the pageants anymore? Yeah.
Where did you come up with that question? The official explanation makes no sense. The Mormon Church said that they're not doing this so that your people can spend more time with their families.
Isn't that what every politician says?
I don't know. And I know you're waiting for a great explanation. I have no idea. They do pageants all over the country, and they attract tens of thousands of people. If I were a Mormon trying to convert people to Mormonism, I would say, let's have more pageants, not less of them. I don't know. It's a mystery to me. I'm going to say one more thing, then we're done for this. One of these prayer requests that I'm concerned about, really concerned about, I'm not worried about it, but it's very realistic. Our mission has a very good policy that retires people from an active missionary status at age 75. I'm 73 and a half. Now, active missionary service with our organization is capital A. They encourage people to continue in lowercase active missionary service. So in a year and a half, they have the policy, the capital A goes away, and I get replaced with a small a, active missionary service. Would you please pray with me that our partners in ministry would understand that as far as I can see, it's not going to change anything we're doing. So I'm not going to start ingesting formaldehyde. As God gives me the strength, I intend to continue exactly as we are now going, as long as God gives me help. There will come a time where that'll change. I understand that. But just pray that we'll kind of have a seamless ride after those days on into continuing service. If you pray with me about that, I would appreciate it. All right, thank you very much for inviting me and welcoming me and at least acting like you were paying attention. Let's have a brief word prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this unexpected but wonderful and refreshing opportunity to get back together again on this Sunday morning in Avoca in July. Lord, as you continue to give us the breath of life, and eyes to see, and hearts to feel, may we look unto the fields that are white already unto harvest, and with a heart of compassion, reach out to the people round about us, whether they be near or far. And Lord, this report is a demonstration of what you can do, even through a weak vessel like me. God, I pray you give many others the opportunity to experience lifetimes of joy in serving Jesus. In his worthy name I pray. Amen. Thank you.